Hi everybody, this is Kimberly from Starfish Design Embroidery. I think I actually can get in the video today, maybe. I'm using the multi-needle today and I already goofed up because I forgot I'm using the multi-needle and I have to stop, each color stop, else it'll just keep going. So today we're doing Stars and Stripes, and I added a feature to Stars and Stripes to square the bottom of it off. So I won't do this for all of my bags, but I will do it for some of them, and it's just an option. So it's a second to last step. The last step, of course, always being the one to stop the machine from centering. So I goofed up and I ran this whole thing. Let me see if this zipper is long enough. Ooh, it's not gonna be. Okay, reset. I need to find a longer zipper. So, phooey. Should use zipper tape, but I don't have any handy. This is the 12 by 8. Figure might as well do the big one since I'm on the big machine. And, oh, my son's gonna shoot me ahead and bring me up some D-ring strap connectors, and I have some right here. Oh well. Can I find a blue? A blue. This is dark blue. I don't want dark blue. I'm sorry, I should have been ready, shouldn't I have? Darn. I wonder if this will work. I don't normally recommend using these resin zippers because it could break a nail or needle, even on the multi-needle. I've had my multi-needle go through them, but it's still iffy. Oh, shoot. Oh, here's a white one. I didn't want white, but maybe I could do white. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, oh wait, here's red. Will red work? Nope, it's not long enough either. How do I not have any long enough zippers? I guess it's because I don't use this machine often enough anymore for testing. So I don't have those really long zippers to test with. I do have some zipper tape, but I did not prepare that. So I'm not going to make you guys wait while I do that. Okay, well, we're just going to have to use this white one and call it a day. I didn't really want white, but my navy, it's too dark of a blue. So what I've already done here and goofed up is I've already ran the zipper placement line. So we're upside down. Let me turn it right side up so you can see. So, but I already started to run the placement stitch because I forgot to press stop. So pay attention only to this line here, and this line here. So what we want to do is center our zipper over the middle zipper line. So our traditional number 3 zipper is 1 inch, and most in the hoop designs are digitized for a 1 inch zipper. My placement is allocated so you can use a 1 inch or even up to a 5. This is actually a 4.5 bag zipper. It has the bigger pull on it. So, but this is only 1 inch. So if you were to just try and center this zipper over that 1 inch, it's going to be too wide. So that's why I add the center zipper placement line. So you center your zipper so that the middle part here is centered over the center zipper line. And if you do that, then your zipper will be placed properly for the pattern. So I have my table on here. I find it's just so much better to have the table when you're using the big hoop. So I'm going to go ahead and tape down. I'm going to try and do this at an angle here. I always start at the end and get that piece taped down out of the way. And then let's see, make sure it's even there. I don't want that metal piece to get anywhere near my presser foot needle or this needle. And then what I do is I use the usually use the 1" or 1/2 inch tape, but I don't have any up here, so I'm going to use the 1 inch and just cut it in half. So I go ahead and I line up that line right on top of the center placement line. And then I put a piece of tape when I go walking the zipper down the hoop on that line. And I tape on the bottom first, and then I'll come back around and put tape on the top. Because if you don't, then the zipper might shift on you. Now, when you take the time to tape this down, it's going to allow you to have a nicer zipper appearance. Your zipper is not going to get wavy or any of that. If you just lay it down and go for it, then it's a good likelihood that your zipper is going to get wavy and your bag is not going to look as nice. Got some tape stuck there. Let's hope this girl still has it in her. She hasn't been turned on in quite a while. Wow, months actually. I stopped using her as my primary test machine because these multi-needles are very powerful and they will pummel through a lot of layers. So I find if that's the only place I test, I'm not getting a good representation of what you're going to have on your single needle machine. So I had gotten a good deal on that Janome 500E, and I use that primarily now for my testing. But in this case, there's nothing I'm worried about with this pattern of a single needle being able to do it, so I don't really need to worry about testing it. But I wanted to be able to test and show you how to do the boxing. Okay, so just one thing when you're on a multi-needle and using this 12x8, the hoop goes on in either direction, so you have to make sure you put it back on the machine in the right direction. A lot of times what I do is put a piece of tape on to indicate which side is the top. In this case, I just know the zipper is on this side. And I had to back up a couple of steps because I wasn't paying attention and didn't put the stop on. Okay, so we ran that. Okay, so we're going to run the tack down strip now. And I'm going to go ahead and it's going to use 3. That's green. That's fine. We can see it. So what I have to do is hit this reserve stop, and it'll stop the machine in between stitches. And once this tacks down, I'm going to remove the tape. I hate when this does this. These threads get pulled down. They fall down. I'll remove the tape from the zipper, and then we're going to put on the back and the base layer for the front. And I'm going to change the thread color because I don't want to be using the green thread. So I'm going to remove it down here at the end as well. You can see where I'm at, right? Yes. Because if I don't, I forget, and then it gets stuck in my seam and drives me crazy. Now, if you position this pieces of tape well, you should be able to pull it off and still reuse it. I forgot to mention, because I always forget to mention, I have polymesh, non-fusible. This is like polymesh no show, but non-fusible hooped. You don't want fusible. You want a soft stabilizer because it's going to stay inside your hoop, or I'm sorry, inside your bag. Now I did order, I finally found some Madeira soft and tear or something like that on on Amazon. I've been trying to find it for a while. I believe that one will work, so I'm going to test that one out. I think it's a little heavy though. My recollection, I had a very small sample of it that I got with one of these machines that I got secondhand. So, yeah, I'm not sure. We'll see. Okay, so now the reason why I rotated this so that the zipper is at this end, is because we're going to have all of our material here for our lining, and it's going to be hanging over, and I didn't want to have to worry about that at the front of the machine. So I have my first lining panel, so I'm going to flip this over, and we're leaving, don't touch your zipper, and we want our lining panel to be placed right side down so that it's centered over the zipper placement lines, and it should be in line with the bottom placement line of the zipper. So when I'm talking about top and bottom, I'm always talking about in reference to the actual bag, not the hoop, because on your machine you may have this oriented in a different direction, or if you're using one of the other, stitching out one of the other sizes, you might have it oriented in a different direction. So top and bottom means in relation to the bag. So the zipper is at the top of the bag, so we want this at the top. So I'm carefully going to fold this over because I don't want it to get stuck underneath the table. All right, so now that I have it there, I know it's not stuck. Now I can fold it down out of the way, and we're going to layer our lining, or our front exterior bottom panel. And I'm doing blue. I'm thinking I should have interfaced this with some Decoville light, but we'll see. And the same thing, we're going to line up the edge with our zipper placement line. You can do the bottom of the zipper if you have cut your materials well, but keep in mind this was digitized for a number 3 zipper, so you may not have enough room. Most of mine are fine if you line it up with the bottom of the zipper. I usually have enough of a cushion in the cutting directions, and I actually do provide cutting directions in all of my patterns, most all of them. At least, let's see, what color do I want? Will this color be good? I actually have this blue out. At least since 2019, maybe my first year of making patterns, I didn't always, but since 2019 I have. Okay, I'm gonna do a thread swap out. I haven't replaced my threads yet, so we can use the blue. See, am I gonna top stitch this? Yes. Okay, so I don't need the pink. So in the multi-needles, the easiest way to swap out thread is you just cut off the old one, put the new one up there, and you leave a long length of thread, and then you just knot it in a slip knot together. I tie it over twice. I find if I only do it once, it can come undone. A square knot is better, but I have not mastered a square knot yet. Oops, I missed the pink. All right, and then trim this off. The extra, put it in your trash bin or your thread holder, and then you come down here and you pull the thread out of the needle, because you don't want it in the needle, and pull it through the knot. And then we're gonna change our color. Oh, it's actually on 4, so we want to put our thread cutter in to come out, which is that, and the thread cutter comes down, and then you just, oh, this pink one's in their way, or the purple, let me get that out of the way. Okay, and there's just a little spring in there, the hook, and you wrap it around here, pull it up here and tie it off, hit the button again, and you're threaded. So much easier than on the single needles. So much easier. Okay, let's get this guy back on here. Now we're going to run the tack down stitch. And hit reserve stop. When you're on a multi-needle, you have to reserve stop every time. did make this a bean stitch. So if you want to do that raw edge meeting the zipper kind of thing, you can do it. It didn't look good in the past when people would do that because one was a straight stitch and one was a bean stitch. Okay, so remove our tape. And on this poly mesh, you can usually get 4 or 5 rounds of this tape. Turn it to the back. And now we want to remove the tape from the lining and we're going to top stitch. So we're just going to pull this down so we can top stitch it, and that helps keep the lining from getting impeding on the zipper. And I like to use my finger and gently finger press this. If you don't have a finger, then get a boning tool or something like that, and then tape your material to your hoop again. Tape it down so it doesn't come loose. And then lightly make sure when you put it back on your table it hasn't come loose. And then we're going to do the same thing here. And on the vinyls I do usually use the boning tool, but I only have one and it's downstairs, so we're just going to have to wing it. Okay, and when you're doing this, always make sure that you have your material against something hard when you try to press it from the top. So that way it doesn't, I did cut this too big. I was estimating because I haven't done the cutting chart yet for this one. But I want to hold that taut. If you don't hold it taut, what could happen is if you just fold it down like this and it's not taut, then when you go to stitch the top stitch, it's going to be all junky there and it's not going to be even. So you have to pull it tautly on both sides and make sure it's taped down. If you're using cloth on a big machine like this, you can actually even put some pins through it outside of the stitch path area. See how, since I couldn't bone that down well, I want to make sure I get a good couple of pieces of tape holding it down. The longer you take to do these steps, the nicer your bag is going to look when you're all done. This machine takes the thought work out of the stitching for you. You don't have to worry about your seam allowance or any of that, but you still need to make sure everything is cut evenly. You want to start with straight lines, that kind of thing. So take the time to do it. Okay, I'm going to use the blue again because I don't want the top stitching to stand out. So I'm going to change it. I have this little magic wand. You press that. Then remember to hit reserve stop. And it's always a good idea to peek underneath and make sure that the lining didn't come undone as well. Now, we're going to pull the lining on the back up before we proceed. And I'm going to switch to the white thread to do the placement lines for our applique. Because we don't want our applique to go through the lining. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pull this out, and then we're going to roll our lining up out of the way. And when it's on a big hoop like this, I usually pull it up here like this, pull it up, and then roll it like this, and then you can pin it to your stabilizer, or in this case I'm just going to tape it. Okay, so that's looking good. So keep the tape down there because mine came loose and I don't want that to be loose. I'm going to tape it down here. It's a little bit weird over here now. Now we're going to run the placement line for our first applique, which is the bottom one. In this case, it's going to be the white. But you don't, I mean, this is the stars and stripes, but you totally can skip the stars and make it just a banded applique bag. Okay, I'm going to hit the reserve stop, and this is going to place the placement line for my next material. And it will be a little hard to see the tack down, but I don't want to use a different color because you might see it through when we do the applique stitch. So I'm going to do white for this. So my machine actually has this ability to pull the hoop out. I hit this button and hit this, and it says okay, and it brings it out here so that I don't have to take it off all the time. But I will take it off so I can show you guys. I'm from Ohio, I say you guys. Okay, so there's our applique. Now at this point, if you're using a really heavy vinyl, you could trim out this amount of the vinyl like this, and that will help reduce your seams. And then you'll basically be creating a new fabric of vinyl by stitching these pieces together. But I'm not going to do that because I'm just going to leave the, actually, you know what? I'm doing the white, and then the red is all on top of here. It actually will be really thick. I think I might just do that. Decisions. So these are the decisions you have to think about. So we're going to have this one here, and then this one's going to be here. But if I cut the blue out, I'm going to leave the blue because if I cut the blue out, it's going to smush the white into it and you won't have the same dimensional look. Okay, so I want to lay this so it's about, I cut this a little bit big because it has the selvage on it. I'm going to cut it, lay it about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch past the tack down, the placement stitch. Make sure this is even over here so that your seam is enough. So those side seams probably are going to be a little bit thick for us, but that's okay. So you could always cut out the blue right here just for that purpose. But I'm not going to. We're just going to wing it because I want the dimensionality. I'm afraid if I cut out the extra, it's going to smash down and I won't get the dimensionality. So I'm just taping this down in the 4 corners, and then we're going to run the tack down stitch. Oh, this is going to drive me crazy. I should have trimmed off the extra. I bought a roll that's way too big for my Janome. I didn't measure very well, and I think this is 20 inches. Okay, so I'm going to push that, and it's going to put it back into position. Now I'm going to use white again because I don't want to see it. If I use a different color, the applique stitch may not show, it may show through. And this band is at the top of the bag. So it does leave room at the bottom if you want to add some embroidery to it. Now, the different sizes, it's hard to hear. This machine is really loud at this moment. This is another reason I don't like to use this for videos. It's very loud. And I won't skip through it because I had a couple people say they like seeing it, the whole process. Okay, so you have to keep in mind if you're going to add embroidery to the bottom of this, when we box it, it's going to take in, the box is 3/4 inch, it's going to take that height away from the bottom of the bag. So go ahead and remove this tape now. And we can go ahead and trim as close to that bean stitch as we can all the way around without cutting into the bean stitch. And I'm using these duckbill scissors. They just are very handy for applique. They're actually made for applique. see what I'm doing. Oh, I'm getting a little too close there. So what I like to do is pull up gently on the piece, which is why I like to make it at least a 1/2 inch over. And I find that I can get right up to those stitches if I do that. See here where I wasn't pulling it? I didn't get as good of a job there. So I'm gonna have to go back and fix that, because if I don't, there's like a fiber material under here, like a felt, a woven felt maybe, and it will cut through those fibers when it's doing the satin stitching, and you'll have a messy look. I'm not going to cut the sides, so our sides are going to be a little thick on this bag, but I'm just cutting the top and the bottom. If you cut a tiny bit into the stitches, don't panic. You should be okay. I made it a bean for that reason, because it will give you a little bit more leeway. If you cut into one piece of the stitch, there's a bean stitch is 3 stitches back and forth, and sorry, I have to sit. I've been having back pain. See, I didn't get close enough here, so I need to get in there and get that, because if I don't, I think you can see here, see how that's like a felty material? Those fibers will show right through your satin. The satin will split the fibers, and then you'll be like, why does it look so bad? Well, it's because the satin came in here, and the needle going in and out, cut through that fiber and splayed it outwards. Unless you have a really thick satin stitch covering, it's going to show. Now, I checked my bobbin before I started this project, but when you get ready to do the satin stitch, always check your bobbin and replace it if you need to, because satin stitch is not very forgiving if you have to stop it and restart it. You'll see a little bump in the satin as you start and restart. Okay, I'm happy with that. So now we're going to run the placement stitch for the band, the red band. So I'm going to just go ahead, and I didn't put my red on yet. Let me put the red on. Should have done that first. I'm sorry, I have an assortment of thread, but primarily I use Isacord and Floriani. Most of the Floriani I have is actually Fufu that I got. I got a whole bunch of it with the first, when I bought the 602. It was basically I don't know what you want to call it. I bought it from a gentleman whose wife had passed away. It was her baby. And then I found somebody was selling a whole bunch of them in the Facebook groups. So I got a really good deal. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and magic myself to number 5. Put my threader. And if you don't have the thread in there when this runs, it gives you a horrible clanking noise. So make sure you have the thread in there. Every once in a while I hit the wrong button. Okay, so now we're going to run the placement step for the red, and hit reserve stop. Oh, wait, I thought this looked weird. It looks like it's the satin. It's not supposed to be the satin yet. Did my colors get out of order? They did. Oh no, I did do it that way. I'm sorry. Okay, we have to do the satin. Okay. The reason I did that is in case you don't want to do the other band. So we're going to do the satin, so I need to select the white. Okay. So we're going to do the satin stitching on the white first. And actually, I want to put a scrap piece of stabilizer under there because sometimes the satin stitching is really heavy and can cut through. So I'm going to just put a piece of scrap cutaway here. And this is just a paper kind I happen to have sitting here just for this purpose. And what I do is I just float it right underneath there. So just get it under there. Oh, and it's going to be just barely wide enough, lengthwise. Okay. So now it's going to do the satin stitching for the white panel. I need to pull this black up because it's driving me crazy and it's going to end up getting stuck in my satin and driving me crazy. Four minutes left. So you guys are welcome to fast forward through this. of thread? Remember I told you to check the bobbin thread? Thought I did. I did run out. Wow. I have a bad estimate of thread now. But I just told you not to do. I did it. Well, at least it's in the... It always starts with a satin or like a zigzag. So at least it was in that section. Not the regular satin. Okay, now we're going to run our placement for our red. So we want to select 5, hit reserve stop. Sorry, I was over here trying to clean up while it's running. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to tape down our red, which is our final applique. And see, this is perfectly fine right now. If you had wanted to just skip the red and just do a 1-bar applique in which you could put a name or whatever on it, you could have done that. Oh, wow, this was not seated properly. I just realized this. I pulled it off. Always make sure on your multi-needle that the clip is down all the way. So, fingers crossed. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make sure this is lined up on this side because it's a little large. And then I'm going to go ahead and lay this down and tape it in place and then run the tack down stitch. And then we'll trim it, and then we'll do the applique, and then we'll be ready to do the stars. I did the stars in opposite colors, so if you want to do 2 colors, you can. Always make sure that your back material is out of the way. So I think the red will cover up if we use white, so I'm going to use white just to make it easier for you to see. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and trim that as close to the bean stitch as we can get without cutting into the stitching, and using our duckbill scissors. This is a time when you really need those small scissors to get in there. It's worth it. I think they're generally a little bit more expensive, but they're really worth it. This is the one case that I'm not as impressed with the Kai. I have the Kai scissors, and actually these are the ones I've been trying to find. I think I'm going to take these downstairs. These are actually really great for getting the applique stitches and everything. But I got the Kai, their version of, they don't have duckbill, but they have the double curved, and I'm not as impressed with them if I'm being honest. They're the only pair that I've gotten that I don't like. These are Klaus, C-L-A-U-S-S. They're okay, but they're not as good as Gingers. Gingers are the best. But I'm trying to build up to the point where I have duplicate, so I don't have to keep taking everything back and forth between the two areas. Now, I'm seriously considering, once this corona is all over, I'm going to be putting a bathroom in up here, hopefully in a couple of years. And then this is going to become my son's room. And, well, potentially. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to make him stay downstairs or not. I kind of don't want him away where I can't see. And stairs aren't great for me. So I think he'll be more tempted to do stuff he's not supposed to be doing if he's up here alone. Because, you know, I'm a mom. I'm not silly. He's a teenage boy. He's going to do stuff. And don't tell him this, but it's actually kind of easy to jump out onto the roof of our addition to the house. And then he's very spry. See, I didn't get it close enough, so I'm redoing it. He's very spry, and it would not be hard for him to just kind of jump down onto the grass. Well, actually, I just realized he can't jump down to the grass because we have the patio there, and the other side is the street, or the parking lot driveway. But anyway, I wouldn't put it past him to try. So I'm like, do I want to put him up here? So we have this big family room, and we never use it because A, the dog tears everything up in there, and then my son doesn't want to clean. B, the temperature in there is very bad. It gets too hot or too cold. So I was talking to the HVAC guy who also does water tanks. We had a flood, and he had to come and clean out my water tank. And he gave me some ideas of reworking the ventilation system so that we can resolve that issue. So I'm like, well, you know, I might take over that whole family room. It's not quite as big as this room, but it's at least the same amount of space that I have up here that I'm taking over. So we'll see. And if I do that, then I'll have everything in one little room. And I will take the time to pay somebody to come in and organize. So if you're in Columbus, Ohio, and you are really great at organizing, call me in 2 years. I should be ready then. Because I'm terrible at it. I'm convinced that we have enough storage in our house if I knew how to use it well. Ooh, isn't that pretty? It's a little bit up here. Let me try and turn it a little bit more. And I have to give a shout out to, oh, I just lost her name. I don't have my iPad up here. The reason that place I got the idea from this is there's a lady, and I will find her name. You guys will see her if you're watching this from my punk. And she does tons of wallets, and she did a wallet. She did the bands the other direction, vertical, which I would have liked to have done them vertical, but the problem with that is, let me show you what I mean. So when we do this kind of work, we're limited with, I can't construct this pattern and then add it to the zipper unless we do another hooping. So we're limited to the hoop. So if we try to do this vertical, I would have to try and attach onto the zipper and fold it down to hide the raw edge, all these bands, and it just wouldn't work unless I did it separate. Now other designers will just go ahead and raw edge, and they'll satin stitch right onto the zipper tape. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not judging anybody else. I don't do that, and I've actually had people ask me about that. And the reason I don't do that is because when you're doing the satin stitching, you're putting hundreds of holes into the surface underneath. And that's why, remember, we just put that extra stabilizer back here. Why we did that? To give that extra body. And you can see my tension's not very good because it's all, oh, that was white. We'll see when we do it. So when you do that, you're putting all those needle punctures into that zipper tape. And the zipper tape is, most of the time, it's a nylon or polyester, not quite woven. Okay, we're getting ready to start the satin stitching, so it's going to get loud. So let me tell you this real fast before. So it's not quite woven, and when you keep pushing a needle into it, let me see if I can find a zipper and show you. So I had some pins sitting here. So you're putting that, look at this, especially the cheaper ones, in and out, in and out, in and out, and in and out, in and out, and you're going to start to tear this. And it's going to tear, and then it's going to end up shredding on you in your bag. And I'm not going to take the chance to do that with my design, so I don't do it that way. So I do everything the way I would do it if I was doing it on a sewing machine, for the most part. This would be much easier on the sewing machine to do that band, and that's why the lady whose name I'm forgetting, she was able to do it that way. Okay, this is going to be really loud, 7 minutes, so I won't fast forward through it, but I'm going to work in the background here because you can't really hear me talking. Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. All right, I'm gonna do all the same color, so I'm gonna go ahead and swap out the red with the gold. It's goldish yellow. Again, we still have our lining backed up, so hope you guys are still with me. That was a long one. This is 33-minute stitch out. Okay, and now we're gonna run the stars. And let's see. Uh-oh. Are we still recording? I got an error message on here. Good, we're still recording. All right, I'm gonna go ahead. I think the vinyl is enough for the stabilizer. I'm gonna go ahead and trim out some of that stabilizer that we added because it's gonna make the bag really thick right there. And I don't want that. So before we add on the stars, because once we add the stars in, I won't be able to trim it out. Oh, I need longer arms. I cut that a little short. I do hope my son is down there doing a little cleaning. I have a feeling he's just on his iPad. We had an agreement. Here's another abandoned project. Look how cute those are. Why did I abandon that? I gotta finish those off. All right. One of these days I'll give a tour of my sewing room, but it's a very hot mess right now, so all right. So I'll make sure 5 is selected. My needle phone. One of the nice things about the multi-needle, people are always like, well, when do you change the needle on it? Well, the way you'll know your needle needs changed, I have thread all the way through my little sequence here, is when it starts breaking thread for no reason. First thing you do is change the needle, because most of the time that's what it's going to be. Okay, I'm going to hit reserve stop. Oh, actually, it already thinks 5 is the next one, so I can just, and then there's a color break, so I can just let it go. Oops, wait. Forgot. I wanted to trim out the extra stabilizer behind here. See how thick this one is? And it will be in the seams, and the seams are already going to be thick because of the 3 layers of vinyl. So I'm just going to tear this down and trim it out. We just needed it there to support the stitching. I don't want the hand of my bag to be thick there. More thick than it's going to be already just from the vinyl. Definitely getting hot up here. Glad we're almost done. When I put in the extra bathroom up here, if you heard me rambling earlier, I'm going to have one of those Mitsubishi wall units put in. There's just one ear vent up here, and it's I live in a Cape Cod. Cape Cod's the top floor was not intended to live on, but they used to call it a converted Cape Cod. That's what I always heard it called when I was growing up. I haven't heard anybody use that terminology for a long time. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and start our stars. And normally you would want that extra to support the stars too, because it's not dense fill, but it's enough. But I think the 2 layers of vinyl is going to be enough. My poor Lily is sitting over here, abandoned. I can't remember the last time I turned her on. That's actually why I'm getting cleaned up, because I hardly ever have a need for a zigzag anymore. So I'm going to put Lily away and put the new Juki where Lily goes. And that way I can free up some space in my floor here. I have a really nice oak, can't see it because it's a mess, cabinet. And I probably should have used white for the stars, but I was feeling like gold. So now the machine knows we've gone through all these color changes, so it thinks we need to do a color change. So I did some, not too heavy of a fill, but just enough to give you the illusion, because we don't want too heavy else it can perforate the vinyl. I much would have preferred satin, but I couldn't get them to look as nice as I wanted on both vinyl and cotton, so I said, oh, we're giving it up. It's not good enough for me, and I can't do it. Who'd have known that would have been such a hard thing to stitch? Yes, now we're going to stitch the strap connector placement. So I'm going to go ahead and do yellow so you can see it. It's going to stitch one on either side and then on the top. Actually, yeah, I'm just going to do yellow. And I want to do a stop. So I give you 4 placement options. So you can either do the straps on the sides or at the top. Or on the smaller bags, you might only want to do a wrist strap connector. So you might want it only on the left or the right. I'll let it stitch the whole thing there so you guys can see. And I have lost my strap connectors. Wow, how do I always do that? Ow! Okay. Bear with me just for a minute. Don't know what I do with the strap connectors. I just need to go back downstairs. I swear, y'all, I do this every project. Every single one, I lose something. I want to use a, oh, they're right here. I was looking for blue. I made them red. Jeez, Kimberly. Okay. So this vinyl was a little bit on the thinner side. I don't know how the wear would work over time with it constantly pulling, but I can't do a double fold because it's too heavy for most machines. So what I do is I add a piece of Decoville Light underneath it, or you could use like ribbon, gross grain ribbon. And I learned that trick from one of my customers. And then you can have a little bit more reinforcement without having the bulk. So just go ahead and hook these on. I'm going to stand up so I can make sure it's even. I'm going to use the strap connectors on the top. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think you can see those, right? I'll hold it up if not. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I want to make sure it's evenly spaced, because with the bigger bags I usually do the placement 1 inch in case you want to use a 1 inch D-ring, but I'm only using 3/4 inch because that's what I use for most of it. So I'm going to go ahead and line it up with the inside edge of that, and I usually line up my D-ring with the edge of the fabric. Now this machine has a much smaller presser foot than my Janome, so it could probably handle getting even closer, but just what I've found has worked in time. And this is actually filling in the frame so much. So just make sure they're evenly spaced. Get a ruler out if you have to. And I do like to use the thick tape here. That was not right, because it kind of gives a little bit of a ramp for the presser foot to get up over. And then we're going to go ahead and run the tack down, which is the beam. Somebody questioned me about having the zigzag placement, thinking that should be for the tack down. The reason I did the zigzag is actually it was one of my fans / friends idea to use the zigzag because it's easier to see it then. Because if you're using a thread that matches your zipper, it's hard to see the placement line. Normally I would just skip past this part, but on the multi-needle, might as well just let it go. But on my Janome, I skip this steps because it's easy to do. We're getting close to the end here. We are on step 14. And I feel like that's not lined up right because it started way over there. Uh-oh. I might have to redo that. No, I think it's okay. So don't rely on the placement of the D-ring strap connector placements for evening it. Use it based on the zipper. Everything is based on the zipper. Now I can stop it because we don't need to do that. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and remove the tape off of this. And then we're going to go ahead and put our, oh my gosh, I did it. We were supposed to put the lining down. Okay, sorry. Then somebody told me, Kimberly, you forgot to move the lining down. So now we have to cut away that D-ring strap and redo it. Doggone it, Kimberly. I always mess something up. I should have known it was going too easy. All those stitches I have to cut away. Shoot, 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 shoot. Seam ripper would be helpful, but I don't know where it's at. I don't have a nice one upstairs. It's down with the... Just careful. See, I'm just being very careful so I don't cut my stabilizer, my fabric, or my zipper. So, you know, mistakes happen. I can't get through a single project without making a mistake. Now, you're not going to do this because you're going to be pulling up the PDF and following along in the PDF, right? Right. And it's important, especially if you've never done one of my patterns before, to do that, because I do things differently than other digitizers. And I can't tell you how many emails, it's past 20 now, at least, that I have gotten from people saying, there's something wrong with your file. It never tacks down the top. Oh, it does tack down the top, but they don't read the PDF and they skip past that step. How they skip past it, I don't know. I don't tack mine all the way around in one go. I do it, like I said before, how I sew it. So I do the top with the, which we were getting ready to do here. Oh, I hope I didn't just cut the zipper. Oh, seam ripper would be so much easier here. I do the top. Did that get caught in there too? The exterior and the lining, just as if I was sewing it. So I do those two pieces, and then I come down and stitch the exterior together, and then pull the lining down and do the final count around. Sorry guys, I'll try and put a bookmark so you know how to fast forward through this, cutting this out. Oh, Kimberly. Yeah, it's not going to be easy to get it from the front. I'm going to put some tape down on those D-rings again so I don't have to move them when I have to redo the stitching. Do be careful when you're using various tapes, because some of them, if you leave them on for too long, will leave a little bit of a residue on some vinyls. Not all, but some. The pink tape especially is bad for that, so I try to use it only on the edges. But the pink tape holds really well. Almost done. Well, this is turning into a much longer video than I intended it to. Sorry, guys. Like watching paint dry, right? Can't believe I did that. You know, the reason why is because I don't follow on my PDF. And I need to do that. I need to start doing that more often. And I haven't even done the PDF for this one yet, because I will take the still shots from the video for the areas that are important. Most of the steps are the same as any other bag, any other applique bag. But okay, what is holding this up? That really got in there. Oh, I just tore it. Shoot, 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 shoot. Oh, phooey. Kimberly. All right, well, that's okay. Hey, Grayson! Sorry. Is Bailey outside? Is Bailey outside? No, I'm not. But I hear a dog barking. I messed up again. And it's taking me forever to fix it. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's really sewn in there good. Should give you guys some assurances that your D-ring strap connector is going to be nice and secure. Ah, finally. I think I cut it. Maybe I didn't. Seemed like I did, but maybe I didn't actually. I don't think I did. Seemed like I did, but... Woo! Okay, other side. Sorry. Oh, Jiminy. Let me see if I can trim it a little bit from here. Oh, here comes the girl. She sometimes won't come in for us. She likes to bark. Anybody who dares to go by our house. Oh, she must have heard me talking to y'all and she just went right back downstairs. She usually comes up here and we have a guest bed up here. And she usually comes up here and lays on it while I'm working. But I don't think she likes this big machine though. Oh, I might be out of camera. I'm sorry. I'm using my 52-year-old eyes here trying to pull the bobbin thread out, because usually it's easier if you can get the bobbin to come out. And so I had to get it close to me. Cannot believe I did that. All the places to do it on was the zigzag stitch too. You know, I have this tool in here that I haven't used yet. I got it on Amazon. I wonder if that would help. It's like a little razor. I bought it, but I still haven't used it yet. Let's see if that helps at all. Oh, holy smokes. Y'all, look at that. Oh my gosh. Where have you been all my life? Whoa. Mind blown. Did it cut the fabric? I can't tell if that's cut or it's just from all the stitches. Whoa. Well, that was a lot easier. Okay, I will put a link for this afterwards. I think it's from, I don't know. I'll put a link. Pretty cool. Why didn't I do that first? Okay, let's backtrack. We need to stitch our D-ring strap connectors down. Just run that step again. All right. Oops, and I'm going to go ahead and put tape down here at the bottom too, because otherwise it might come loose on the, when I push it underneath here. All right. sorry guys, back. I'm just gonna go ahead and run this stitch to secure those D-ring strap connectors so they don't go loose, since we just cut all the thread off. There we go. Okay, then we're going to add on our lining back and our front. I do hope I don't run out of battery. It's a waste of battery time here. Wait, this is where I'm gonna stop. Okay. Now, I'm gonna lay on our lining back, right side facing down, and it should be lined up with the top zipper placement. And then tape it down. When you're using the multi-needle like this, I like to use tape down here too, because in my experience, it's more likely to push up on this one than it is on the other kind, the single needles. And make sure it's down tight, because if it's not, it'll bump up on you. Okay, and then we're gonna go ahead and put our top exterior back, and I'm lining everything up on this side so that I know it's lined up on one end, because it's a little large. And on this side we just need to secure it. I like to secure the center and the two sides. Okay. I have not opened the zipper yet. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and run the tack down. I use the blue now, because that way if it shows in my stitches, it's going to match. And this is only at 900 stitches per minute. I hardly ever run it at full blast. See how it doesn't even hesitate going over that D-ring strap connector, but on the other machines it does. And this is using 7511 needles. I would never be able to do that on the Janome with a 7511 needle. Okay, now we want to go ahead and pull this lining up, and we're going to run a top stitch. Now at this point you can top stitch the back as well if you want by folding it up. I'm choosing not to do that. If you look in the PDF, I'll show you a little picture that shows you what it looks like. When you do the top stitch on the back, it does do a little bit of a pleat. And so if you know what you're doing on a multi-needle, you can actually at this point go ahead and cut the zipper away from the, here you'd cut it away here and here through the stabilizer, and then let me make sure you're on the camera. You cut it away here and here, and then fold the zipper down in half on top of itself, and then you can have a real top zipper. And if you have downloaded or done my Sassy Hipster, I have instructions on how to do that in that one. I think I have instructions in another file too, but I gave up doing it because most multi-needles can't handle that, and so I just don't do the instructions. It's too confusing for people and it wastes a lot of time. Okay, so now we're going to do the top stitch. I'm not top stitching through the exterior though, but I want to top stitch through the lining because it helps hold it down better. So now we still have this blue stitch down, so we're going to go ahead and open the zipper up, and I like to move it so that it's I'm going to do the push it out here so I don't have to take it off. I like to make the push the zipper pull so it's even with the other D-ring strap connector. So you have to pull it. There's tape. Get rid of the tape. You have to pull the D-ring strap connector out of your way. Oh, actually, I'm digging this white zipper after all. Okay. And then go ahead and tape this down as tautly as you can. And what we're going to do is we're going to tape, or we're going to stitch down here the part that is going to be the opening to turn the bag. Why is it? Okay. Oh wait, I want to do the, make sure the blue is chosen. So this is just securing the exterior together right now. And I make the turning hole very nice and long, so if you decide to do the credit card zipper pocket inserts, you have more room to turn it. Okay, now we're ready. We're down to the last 3 steps, but we're going to stitch 2. So now we're ready to go ahead and fold our lining down, but before we do that, we want to go ahead and remove our stabilizer behind our zipper. And a seam ripper works best. But what I like to do is make sure, so you can do it with the scissors, that you can see the blade underneath them, underneath the stabilizer. So that way you know you're not cutting into your zipper tape or your fabric. And then just glide it along. These little snippers work well for it, as well as a seam ripper. And then I can come over here and do the same thing. And I hold on to this to give it a little tautness. And then just slice it down. Oh, I forgot to mention when you should, if you wanted to do any extra embroidery, you would do that before you do the D-ring. But it'll be mentioned in the PDF. All right. Now we're going to fold our stabilizer down, our lining, and tape it down. And again, we want to fold it as tautly as you can. Need more tape. Now, when you are doing your bag, if for some reason you're not getting a nice turn, and this is bunching up at the top inside the bag, before you turn it, put a piece of double stick tape here, leave the paper on it so that it doesn't give you a hard time when you're turning it, and then after you turn it, reach up and pull the paper out and push it against the back of the lining, the exterior. That's just a little trick that you can do if that lining wants to bunch up on you. Since I do the top stitching, I've found that it doesn't try to bunch up as much. Okay, so now we're going to run the strap, the final seam in blue, and then I'm going to run the squaring in white so it stands out to you. So it's going to start up here and do some back tacking. It's going to go down to the bottom. And then there are some carry stitches, some travel stitches that'll take it over to the other side. Because I'd like to start at the top in case there's any give in the vinyl, it pushes it that way. I'd rather there be a little bit of extra bulk at the bottom than at the top, if it's going to push it. See how this, with the D-ring straps in here, it kind of pushes up on the vinyl. Now this is called vinyl, but it's pretty materially feeling with the knit backing. See, this is just a carry stitch to help you navigate around. Now it's going to come up here and start stitching down. Okay, now I'm going to change it to white so that the stitches show out. If you don't want to box the bag, you're done now. You can take this off the hoop and make sure the back is okay before you unhoop it. But I'm going to run the boxing step in white so it shows. And I'm going to hit reserve stop because I don't want it to run the last step. That's just to prevent the needle from coming back and getting stuck anywhere in the hardware. This is a reinforcement stitching because we're going to be cutting into our stitching that we just made for the seam. So I don't want the sides to come apart. So we're going to reinforce that. And then you see that's just a basting stitch. That's what we're going to cut in order to box our bag. And now it's going to go over and do the other side. Okay, so we're going to skip the last step. But, oh, and I did catch it. Darn it. See? Always check. Darn. And this is because I did it on the multi-needle. It's, for some reason, the multi-needle likes to throw the thread up more. I do have to fix this, though, because my boxing stitches went through it. So just, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to go back and redo this step a minute. Actually, I'm going to just, since we're going to the sewing machine anyway, I'm just going to fix it on the sewing machine. But it's not a big deal. As long as you haven't unhooped it, just back up to those stitches and redo it, just like I did when at the top. Okay, so this will stay, so that's fine. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and fix it at the sewing machine. All right, so I'm going to take this hoop off. I'm going to put my machine back to home. Take all the tape off as you go here. All right, let me turn this off. All right, now we're going to move over to the sewing table. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and trim all the extra away after I rip out those stitches I messed up. And I'm going to sew that and fix it. Okay, so I'm working on my Juki 18 TL18 QVP. This is like the newest model of this series, and I love it so far. It's very powerful. Okay, so let me go ahead and stitch this before I go forward. So I don't mess up on that piece. Hey, Grayson! Sorry, I should make sure Grayson could see. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing. Can you come here and tell me if you can see me on the machine in the camera? I can't see, I can't figure it out by myself. If I need to position the camera. Can you see all this?
What?
Like right in here.
Right there?
Yeah, like right here and here.
Like that machine, the
yeah.
top?
Yeah.
No, you can't.
You can't?
The top.
Okay.
That's...
Is that better or worse? You have to loosen this if you want to pull it up. Okay, you position it. You know, you can see that in here.
It's gonna...
Once you get it positioned, I'll lock it. Oops.
That's good.
That's good? That's good?
I think so.
Here, you can take these downstairs with you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the help. And I'm almost done, I promise. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish threading this. It's easier to thread when the needle is down, or the presser foot is down. I'm not a master at it yet. The first few times I did this, I caught it. Every single time I caught it. But I don't know, I haven't used it in a while, so now it's like I've forgotten. I've been doing the masking. But there's like a little spring in there, and you have to catch it. And you can kind of hear it. Oh, I thought I caught it that time. You can kind of hear it. Oh. Came out of there. It's got to be in that little piece there. Try this again. Weird. Why is it not catching? One more try, and then I'm going to just do the manual way. I think I might be because I have a bigger needle on here. But it's hard to see because you have to bring the needle in from the side. So it's hard to thread. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and restitch over that area that I messed up first before I forget. I have my little zipper hinged foot on here. Oops. I'm still not used to that thread cutter. All right, I'm going to back stitch over here. And again, I'm just doing this because I messed up. If you did not mess up on yours, you don't need to do this step. All right, there we go. Now we can go ahead and trim out this guy. Get rid of all the stabilizer, the extra material, and you want to leave about a 1/4 inch seam allowance everywhere except the turning hole. At the turning hole, leave it about a 1/2 inch, and we're going to do a little notch so that it's easier to do on the back so you can see where that is at. And I just do like a little notch. On both ends. And then I cut it from the other side because I find it's easier to see from this side, the stitching. Okay, so then cut all the way around 1/4 inch. Do not cut off the D-ring strap connectors. Leave those long. The reason you want to do that is because as you hold the bag, as the bag is getting worn on the body with a crossbody strap or however you're doing it, those D-ring strap connectors take a lot of pressure, especially if the person is weighting down the purse. And when you, oh, I don't have the trash bag right here. When you leave them, cut them really short, there's nothing to fit. If you have to repair it, you have no room to repair it, and there's nothing to take the weight of it off, the stress of that seam. But if you leave them a little bit longer, then it helps take the weight off the stress of that seam, distributes it a little bit more into the, they don't need to be quite this long, so I do about 1/2 inch. And you can trim off this piece, but try not to cut the seam or the zipper tape. Just cut the vinyl. So I just fold it back and cut it. All right. All right, so we only need the lining. Wow, I really cut it short with this. We only need the lining to be longer. So you can go ahead and cut this flap off. Okay, that's how you would normally do your bag. So I think I can show you how to taper it since I'm going to cut that piece off. So if you're going to leave it like this, you didn't do the boxing, you want to cut across this like that, but you also want to come in here and taper off some of this on the side like that. And if you do that, it reduces all that bulk in the corner, so when you go to turn the bag, you can get it a nice finish on the bottom better. We're going to cut this off anyway, so I'm just showing you. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and cut this square that we just sewn. We want to cut on the stitching so it totally comes out. So use your best scissors and get as close to right on the stitching. You don't want the box to be too big. And you see now we put that reinforcing stitches on the side seam. I don't think I caught that one. Let me try these scissors, are a little bit sharper than those. So right on the stitching, you're going to have a little box and it's going to come apart. Okay, same thing over here. Right on that stitching. So you're just going like a hair, a thread above it to cut it free. You don't want to get too far out from it though, because that'll make the square not even and your bag won't line up right. Try not to cut past it. Right, so now you have these 2 little squares out, and you see now that you can separate this out on both sides. Now we're going to turn the bag to the lining side. Oh, such a dingbat. I forgot to get the bias ready to cover the edges. I see a piece of blue material right there though, so I can use it. So just turn it to the lining side out. You don't need to turn all the way out yet, but we want these corners to be popped out. Okay, see, now we have the lining and the exterior. This had a really good idea. I'm going to use this as the bias to cover the edges. So what I like to do first is reach in here and separate out the exterior from the front. So you want to be able to see the exterior and the lining, exterior and lining, just like that. And then we're going to go ahead and fold it down and line up on those seams right on top of each other. And make sure if your lining starts to come apart, pull it up, because you want all this to be even right across. It should be straight across, and then put some clips on it. And we're going to baste it in place first on either side. So that's the first side, and we're going to do the same thing here. Again, so we want to reach our fingers in here and get the exterior separated. And you can reach in from the inside if you need to, through the zipper. And then we're going to lay the seams right on top of each other. If you were doing this in a sewing bag, you would actually be able to offset those, because you would sew it together in a different manner and you'd offset them and reduce the bulk there. But since we're doing it this way, we can't offset those seams. So they're going to lay right on top of each other. Make sure it's straight across, and then put your clips on to hold it in place. Whatever clips you have. I got these rainbow ones from Lauren Mormino. Okay, see how that is? And that is. And now I'm just going to go ahead and baste across it just to hold it all in place. And this is going to be kind of thick. So I just stay as close to the edge as I can, so like 1/8 of an inch, and then I back stitch. And remove the clips if they get in your way. All right, so that side's done. Make sure it caught on the other side. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. So we're going to put it underneath. And we're just going to baste it close to the edge. And you might need a bigger needle in your machine to get through all this bulk. And make sure you catch it on the back. Okay, now we can move the clips out of the way. So I'm going to go ahead, since I have extra of this, I'm actually going to use this to cover the edges, since I have it. And I'm just going to make a little bit of a bias tape with this. So normally you would use fabric, and you just fold it in half and then half again, and then you cover the raw edges, and then you just stitch it across this way. This is a little bit wide, so I'm going to go trim it real quick. Now, if you're afraid that of your sewing skills, at this time, you could actually just use your overlocker, your serger. Mine's all the way over there, and serge the edges. Or you can even, once you baste it down, glue or permanent tape cover the edges. So I'm going to go ahead and fold it over the edge. I got a little bit of a bump right here, so I'm going to trim that off so it lays flat. Then I'm going to go ahead and fold it in half and make sure it matches on both sides. And then I'm going to clip it. So I make sure I have the same amount of this material, this vinyl, on both sides. And I would take the time to trim those little frays and use some fray check on it. In the interest of time, I'm not going to do that. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing over here. If you have a little bit of a bump, go ahead and trim the extra threads and the little bump. And if you were using your bias fabric, I have a square right here, I can show you real quick. What you would do is you would have fold it in half and then fold each side in half, like you're doing a D-ring strap connector, and then fold the edges in. So you'd want to start with like 3 inches and fold in 1/4 inch on either end. I like this idea of the vinyl better though, to be honest. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fold it over and make sure it's even on both ends. And this is just decoration to cover up that seam, because we already stitched it in place, and you could have just stitched it exactly 1/4 inch too. See, there it is. But since this is non-fraying vinyl, it's just makes sense to do it this way. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to leave it at 2.5 stitch length. And this time I'm going to try and keep as close to the edge and keep it even as I can. So I'm using this 1/8 inch, so I know that's 1/8 inch over there. So I'm going to go forward a few stitches, and then I'm going to back up. I'm going to go forward again. And this is going to reduce whatever this width is that you're stitching, is going to reduce your bag that amount. And this is a good time to have a stiletto. And make sure you caught it on the other end, okay? And I would use the same bobbin thread, would have been nice. Okay, so whatever this seam allowance you're using is what you're reducing by half your bag. Okay, so make sure it's in there tight. Start it, back press. And I'm actually going to go over it again, because I find that I just like to go over my corners extra, just to make sure they're secure. So I'm checking it first to make sure it's caught, and then I'm going to go ahead and go over it one more time. Because what happens is, especially on these corners, what happens is there's a tension there on the thread, and it can show the threads through your seam. And this is the trick to not doing that. You come back over it again, just like a smidge away from the original one. Okay. So now you're ready to go ahead, and you can close your seam bag if you want, as long as we're up here. I'm going to turn mine totally inside out though before I do that. Make sure everything looks good. And then push your seams out. And this is a step I didn't tell you when you were doing the basting. You could have done this first and made sure it looked even before you finished, and then redid it if it didn't. I got lucky. Mine's pretty even. It's a little bit off, but this seems pretty close. Okay. And then go ahead, and if you did that little trick with the tape, see what I mean? It kind of wants to fold up here. You could have put some tape back there and hold it down, but I haven't secured the bottom yet. So once I secure the bottom, now the corners, you get this little bulk up here. So if you just, I don't have my pointing device up here. Let's see if I can use these little pliers things. If you push down on that and then pull up, it'll help push that into it and allow your zipper tape to come up. It's easier with the stilettos. And then over here, you do the same thing. You want to just go ahead and get your turning device in there. And I don't have the hemostats. And then push up. I'm holding my thumb here to make sure I'm not tearing through. And then you see how you can get that zipper to come all the way up. And then there we go. You have a boxed Stars and Stripes zipper pouch. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, please, so I can grow my YouTube channel. And also subscribe if you haven't done that already. I am going to be working on getting some other non-pattern specific file or videos out, so keep that in mind. But this one here is Stars and Stripes, and today's Memorial Day. I should have it hopefully released by the end of the week. I'm running behind, but I had to do the video for you guys. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.